Hey all, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make an amazing, slightly spicy Mediterranean style white bean stew. And there are some North African Moroccan elements in here with some Aleppo peppers, some harissa, and that really makes everything really exciting. And there's a lot of good stuff that's in this bean stew. A lot of stuff that's amazing for your body, maybe some gas from all those beans, so just keep that in mind. But it's going to be so creamy, buttery almost from the beans, and a bit of kick from the Aleppo pepper flakes and from the harissa. Something else you want to be really careful about is washing that rainbow chard or the Swiss chard really well. So I've cut it into stems, which I've diced, and then roughly chopped the leaf part. And I washed it separately because we will be sauteing the stems. But there's a lot of mud and sand that can be in there, and you don't want a gritty, dirty soup. So clean that well. Then get your pot nice and hot, and then add in some olive oil. Then add in your celery and the charred stems, along with carrots and onions. And you'll notice that everything is kind of chopped about the same size, and that's just for a pleasant texture for this stew. Add your minced garlic as well, and then we want to just lightly sweat all these veggies, and yes, they do smell incredible as they start steaming. Now you want to cook until they've only very lightly softened, and then you can start adding in some spices. We can dry roast them and infuse their aroma within these veggies. So start with your Aleppo peppers, and then a whole bunch of your harissa spice. Now, in terms of the spice level, for the amount of spice that I'm using in this dish, think about medium spiced cauliflower wings, or if you eat chicken wings, medium spiced chicken wings. That's kind of the scale. And based on that, you can move the scale to your liking. So you can add more of these peppers, more of the harissa, and really make it your own. Add the other spices as well, which include some cayenne, paprika, some ground ginger, ground cumin, and ground coriander. Start adding in a touch of your flour, about a tablespoon, and we'll roast that right now as well. And that's going to eventually help us to thicken the actual stew later on. And make sure nothing is sticking on and burning. And if you notice things sticking and then browning, add a touch of water and scrape it all off. And then finally add in some tomato paste, and we want to cook out the tartness from it, so just let it cook by itself. I noticed it was a bit dry in the center, so I sprayed some olive oil in there to make sure it gets the time it needs to cook. And then after 3 to 4 minutes of just stirring and cooking all this flavor out, add in your broth. I'm using vegetable broth here. Add like a touch first, about a cup, so that the flour doesn't lump up, and then add the rest. And this right here is just such a flavorful broth. It's so packed with flavor, and we're almost at the finish line. So let's talk about the Great Northern beans that I'm using for this recipe. Now, while you can get them canned, they never really have the same amount of flavor, the same texture, and the same feel as making it homemade. So if you can, I recommend you make it at home. It's very easy. I just soak these for 4 hours in hot water, and then pressure cook them in my Instant Pot for about 7-8 minutes, and just let the pressure release naturally completely, about 25 minutes of that. And then you'll have something that looks as delicious and creamy as these beans, which will now go in that broth. You want to make sure that you season these beans, because you really cannot later on, because that seasoning will go inside those beans. So add the beans in, and then top it off with the rainbow chard or the Swiss chard leaves on the top. And now very gradually and very carefully mix the leaves and the beans together. You want to be careful so that you don't end up mashing all the beans. Slotted spoon was really beneficial because I could delicately push the beans and just fold the ingredients together, and eventually those rainbow chard leaves will release a lot of their water. It will add to the body of the actual stew, and it'll all mix really well as they reduce in volume. Okay, this is looking incredible. Taste it so that it tastes incredible as well. The salt will help you taste the beautiful dish we have made here. Adjust per your preference. And then just garnish it up with some freshly plucked pieces of dill. It really adds a lot to it. Add it if you can. And you are now ready for when summer says bye-bye and fall is in front of our windows. We are getting kind of close to that, where I am at least. Now, something that you may confuse Great Northern beans with are cannellini beans, but they're actually quite different, and it's perfectly fine if you did confuse the two. The cannellini beans are also known as white kidney beans, and they have a thicker skin and slightly bolder beany taste. So while they're both tasty and great for stews, these are different than cannellini beans. And something you have to consider if you're going to use cannellini beans instead of northern beans is you really have to cook them well. Because if you don't, then there are toxins in those beans, and if not cooked properly or if it's still hard, then it can affect your health. So just keep a close eye. Plus, northern beans on the other side are much more delicate and they cook much faster as compared to the cannellini beans. So the recipe time will change based on what you want to use. I'll try to put a chart with the cook times for each of these beans linked down below. These are the best beans that I have ever had, and I've had lots of beans in my life. You can check out all the bean recipes that I have made down below, and these are easily on the top. So go ahead and enjoy these, and I'm gonna see you on the next one.